Black rain over Tehran. This is no longer just another war in the Middle East. This is a live shockwave moving through oil markets, shipping lanes, political power, and the nerves of the entire world. In just a matter of days, the sky over Iran turned black. Oil depots erupted into fire, nuclear facilities were struck, and every trader from London to New York to Singapore suddenly understood the same brutal truth. When Iran burns, the world pays for it. The image that changed everything was not a speech, not a headline, and not a military map. It was the sky. A ceiling of black smoke rolling over Tehran like a second night. Flames rising from oil storage sites. Dark ash falling over streets, rooftops, vehicles, and neighborhoods. Black rain over a capital already under pressure. It was the kind of image that does not stay local. It jumps borders, it enters markets, it moves money, it changes fear into price. The moment those strikes hit Iran's oil infrastructure, the war stopped being just a military story. It became an oil story. And in the modern world, an oil story is always a global story. Traders do not wait for full damage reports. They react to risk. They react to fire. They react to fear. And what they saw in those opening hours was enough to drive crude sharply higher and inject raw panic into every conversation about energy security. The message was immediate and savage. This conflict is no longer happening on the edge of the global economy. It is now inside it. Israel did not aim for symbolism alone. It aimed for pressure points, oil depots, energy logistics, strategic infrastructure. And then came the deeper escalation. Nuclear sites, underground facilities, the kind of targets that tell the entire region this is no limited exchange and no warning shot. This is a campaign designed to break capability, break confidence, and break the assumption that Iran can absorb attack without watching its strategic backbone shatter in real time. That is why the psychological effect has been almost as powerful as the physical destruction. Every burning depot means less certainty in supply. Every strike near a sensitive facility means more fear in the market. Every plume of smoke over Tehran becomes a signal to every refinery, tanker operator, insurer, hedge fund, government minister, and central bank that the old balance is gone. Stability is gone. Predictability is gone. And once predictability disappears from energy markets, prices do not move politely. They jump, they whip, they punish. What makes this moment so explosive is that the war is hitting multiple layers at once. On the surface, you see the bombs, the smoke, the retaliation, the emergency crews, the official statements. Underneath that, something much more dangerous is happening. The entire machinery of global energy trust is being shaken. Oil is not just about supply. It is about confidence that supply will arrive on time, move safely, remain insured, and survive political escalation. Right now, that confidence is under direct assault. The Strait of Hormuz sits at the center of that fear like a loaded weapon. It is not just water on a map. It is one of the most sensitive arteries in the world economy. The moment military escalation and shipping risk collide there, every country that depends on energy starts calculating pain. Not theoretical pain, real pain. Fuel costs, freight costs, insurance costs, industrial costs, inflation pressure, political pressure, consumer anger. Hormuz does not need to close completely to scare the market. It only needs to become dangerous enough that ship owners hesitate, insurers raise rates, and operators reroute. That hesitation alone can send prices surging. That is why the oil market is responding not only to what has been destroyed, but to what may happen next. This is what makes the current moment so brutal. Traders are no longer asking only how many storage sites were hit. They are asking how many more can be hit. They are not only asking how much crude Iran can still move, they are asking how long tankers can move through a region now defined by missile risk, drone risk, naval risk, and political uncertainty. The war has opened a new premium in the oil market, a fear premium, a chaos premium, a premium paid by everyone. And then there is Tehran itself. Blackened sky skies above the capital have become a symbol of something larger than damage. They now represent internal strain inside Iran, a state already under sanctions, already under pressure, already balancing military doctrine with political survival, now finds itself absorbing attacks on the very systems that project resilience. Oil is revenue, oil is leverage, oil is survival. Nuclear infrastructure is doctrine, it is pride, it is deterrence. When both come under attack in the same window, the result is not just material loss, it is strategic humiliation. This is where the internal political story turns dangerous. Leadership injuries, reports of confusion, new figures suddenly pulled upward into roles they were not expected to hold this soon, rival power centers trying to shape the national response, hardliners demanding force, pragmatists trying to manage fallout. The more pressure Iran absorbs, the more unstable decision-making can become. And unstable decision-making in a war like this is exactly what global markets fear most. Because the worst spikes in oil do not come only from damage, they come from miscalculation. Donald Trump has fueled that atmosphere with language designed to dominate the narrative and leave no ambiguity. Unconditional surrender, last best chance, whatever it takes. Those phrases hit because they are simple, ruthless, and cinematic. They compress a complicated war into a few lines built for headlines and television. But beyond the rhetoric is a harder reality. Language like that does not calm markets, it hardens expectations. It tells traders, allies, enemies, and nervous governments that the ceiling for escalation may be higher than anyone wants to admit. On the Israeli side, the messaging has been equally sharp. Precision, necessity, threat elimination, regional security. The framing is clear. This is not being sold as temporary punishment. It is being presented as strategic reduction of a long-term threat. That matters because markets hear that language too. If a campaign is framed as strategic and necessary, traders assume it may continue. If it may continue, then more infrastructure may be hit. If more infrastructure may be hit, then supply risk remains live. And when supply risk remains live, the market prices in fear before it prices in fact. Iran's answer has been defiance mixed with pressure. It cannot afford to look broken. It cannot afford to look passive. It also cannot afford to trigger a response so large that the remaining pillars of its energy system collapse under combined military and economic force. So what the world is watching now is a dangerous balancing act. Iran needs to retaliate enough to project strength, but not so wildly that it invites even more devastating strikes. That balancing act is fragile. One wrong move in the Gulf, one misread signal, one attack on shipping, one strike that kills the wrong target, and the conflict could expand in hours. That is why this war feels different. It is not just about territory or ideology, it is about tempo. Every development is being absorbed instantly by a world wired for immediate reaction. A burning storage tank in Iran becomes a price move in Europe within minutes. A threat to Hormuz becomes an insurance shock before nightfall. A speech in Washington becomes a recalibration in crude futures almost instantly. In a slower era, wars took time to echo through the global economy. Now the echo is immediate. The explosion and the market reaction almost exist in the same breath. And this is exactly why the black smoke over Tehran matters so much. It is not only evidence of destruction, it is proof that energy infrastructure has become a front line. Once oil storage turns into a target, the war stops being local. It starts reaching directly into the lives of people who may never hear a siren in their own city, but will still feel the cost at the pump, in transport, in freight, in electricity, in food, and in inflation. That is how modern conflict spreads, not only through armies, but through systems. The strongest image in this entire crisis remains the simplest one. A city under a dark sky, fuel burning, heat rising, power shifting, markets flinching. That image works because it compresses everything into one frame. War, energy, fear, money. It is visual, immediate, and impossible to ignore. Viral moments are usually built on spectacle. This one is built on consequence. The smoke is real, the price shock is real, the instability is real, and the deeper this goes, the more terrifying the next question becomes. What happens if the strikes continue? What happens if more oil infrastructure is hit? What happens if Hormuz becomes even more dangerous? What happens if internal fractures inside Iran grow worse? What happens if retaliation starts targeting a wider set of regional assets? Every one of those possibilities adds another layer of premium to oil, another layer of fear to markets, another layer of pressure to governments. This is why the story now has global gravity. Europe is watching because it knows energy shocks become political crises. Asia is watching because it knows shipping disruption becomes industrial pain. The United States is watching because every rise in oil feeds domestic pressure, market sensitivity, and broader geopolitical risk. The Gulf is watching because it sits closest to the flame. No one is far away from this anymore, not really. So the real headline is not just that Israel hit Iranian oil and nuclear infrastructure. The real headline is that the world has entered a phase where war and energy are moving as one. Tehran burns and crude jumps. A threat in Hormuz grows and insurers panic. Leaders speak and the market convulses. Everything is now connected by speed, fear, and consequence. This is not a contained crisis. This is a live test of how much shock the global energy system can absorb before volatility becomes disorder. It is a test of how much damage Iran can take before it changes the scale of its response. It is a test of whether Israel and its allies can keep striking without detonating something even larger. And until those questions are answered, black smoke over Tehran will remain more than an image. It will remain the symbol of a world standing too close to the fire,